Worldwide expansion is underway for nuclear-generated electricity. It's always a pleasure having Ronald Stein, engineer, senior policy advisor for the Heartland Institute. Good afternoon, Ronald Stein.
Armando, glad to be aboard.
Thank you. Please let me share, very beginning, some pictures. Three pictures I have. First, countries in the north have more nuclear energy per capita than those in the south. It's something curious. I don't know why, but you can explain later. The second is that it's so impressive that France is the leader in nuclear energy as a source in the world. It's very, very high level, 40% of the total, and 70% of electricity in France is from nuclear. And the third and last one is that China and India are the ones that are building the most nuclear plants for electricity. And
Yes.
The question for you, the first one, Ronald, please. The US is no longer interested in nuclear power for electricity, or did they give up?
You mean the United States?
Yes.
Armando being the nuclear expert. So, no, people, I guess because of the unknown, we're afraid of it. Nuclear, when you take a look at nuclear's track record, going back to the disasters we had, over in Russia, there have been very few people that have died from nuclear. It's the safest way to generate continuous, uninterruptible electricity. It takes the least amount of land when you compare it to, wind and solar and everything else. And so it's extremely very reliable. And yeah, France was the first one. They're pretty much
Why?
Because they're smarter than us. That's why.
Good.
In
Napoleon, probably.
In fact, most recently, Sweden, recognizing the fact that wind and solar generate electricity, and they generate electricity some of the time. In fact, most of the time, they're not generating electricity because of the wind's not blowing, the sun's not shining. They're not generating electricity. So it's occasional electricity, and Sweden finally threw in the towel and says, we want reliable electricity, just like France. And they basically are changing their policy from 100% renewables, 100% unreliables, to 100%, fossil fuel. And so, yeah, they're basically going to either natural gas or nuclear because they want continuous, uninterruptible electricity. Armando, you can't run businesses, hospitals, the economy on occasional electricity.
Reliable, yeah.
Yeah, if you're on the operating table, you want reliable electricity for the surgeon. So,
And contingencies.
that's
And
right.
sometimes contingencies, yeah.
Yes.
Diesel generators and so.
Right. So like I say, we have the population of the world has been growing. It's been growing the last 200 years, and it's grown from like 1 to 8 billion. And the need for two things: the need for electricity is there, and the need for the products that brought us out of the caveman days. We have, iPhones and defibrillators, and we have, refrigerators and ovens and stoves, and these things weren't available, a couple hundred years ago. And so we're a very product, materialistic driven society. And the renewables, wind and solar, can make none of that. If they do generate electricity, you might be able to operate your dishwasher or your clothes washer, but wind and solar cannot make the dishwasher. They cannot make anything else, and so they're very limited to what they can do. And electricity is the interesting thing about electricity. Everything that needs electricity, I'll say it again, everything that needs electricity is made with fossil fuels.
And you mentioned before in another meeting that consider that not all population are having access to these products, and so we have 70%. I don't know the number that do not have access to these products and electricity. So if when these people go to the consumption, what can happen?
Well, the people in the developing countries, you have to understand that, about half the world is living on less than $6 a day. They don't have enough money to subsidize themselves out of a paper bag. We take everything in our home, the office, the workplace, the hospital for granted, but these people have nothing. And if we, keep increasing the cost of electricity, these people have nothing to lose because they got nothing to lose. And so, to bring them out of, poverty and have them join the Industrial Revolution, they need the products that are now made with, manufactured crude oil, petrochemicals, and the fuels. It's great. Today we got, 50,000 merchant ships. We got 50,000 jets, to 20,000 military jets. We're moving products all over the world. We can grow it in one country, move it to another country. And, 200 years ago, we didn't have that capability. And electricity doesn't do anything because electricity can only electrify what's been made from the products that we get out of crude oil.
Yeah. Going to the nuclear energy, so normally the nuclear plants are big, are complex, but there are new solutions for that. SMRs, small modular reactors, is necessary to have special, let's see, regulations, manufacturing plants for these SMRs.
Yes. Well, just correcting your one statement, nuclear power plants are not large. When you compare them to wind and solar acreage, they're relatively small, but they're a lot larger than the SMR, the small modular reactors. The small modular reactors is a concept that I think more research should go into that, more permitting should go into that, because you can basically put a smaller, quote, nuclear power plant, in an area and service 100,000 people. The nuclear power plants you see now, they're serving, millions of people. But these developing countries, you can get them electricity relatively quickly with a smaller nuclear power
Size
plant.
nuclear power. When you say small, which are the dimensions for small reactor?
That's one thing I didn't get prepared for. There's dimensions, but
Sorry for that.
but it is small. I guess the analogy I would give you, it's kind of like having a diesel generator.
Diesel generator.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is small, not that small, but
Not portable, but small.
right, definitely not portable. But yeah, the amount of acreage that wind and solar take, and the only thing we're getting out of it is occasional electricity. And it's like I say, the NIMBYs, they're not in my backyard, they're rejecting these left and right. I think in the United States, there's over 600 proposed wind farms and solar farms have been rejected by the locals. Don't mess up the landscape in my community. And we're not going to get anything out of it, is just for electricity. And then when these things fall apart after 10 or 20 years, you got to recycle them, and we've yet to get a proven economical way to recycle them. And so we've got a lot of hazardous waste to deal with, and besides, messing up the landscape. So it's, I'm just amazed that our politicians don't see that wind and solar are only generating a periodic electricity.
And intermittent, and with a large amount of area to a short part of energy.
Exactly.
And how do you see this implementation of SMRs worldwide? I mean, you need to have competence, training, understanding of these applications, and moving logistics movements for the uranium, for the source. How do you see this challenge?
Well, we've spent a lot of money going into space. A lot of funding the research and the planning, everything else. That's the one area that we have to do basically for the small modular reactors and even the current nuclear reactors. Nuclear reactor technology is changing daily. I think right now there's like 60 nuclear reactors being constructed in 15 countries, and Russia
Yeah,
and China
this,
are
yeah,
accounting for like 70%.
this is the plant. China
Yeah,
has 24 being constructed, and not the future is nowadays can't committing to nuclear power. Yeah, India, Turkey, South Korea, Russia, with a lot of
yeah. And the nuclear technology, like I say, it's changing on a daily basis, and we're losing ground here in America because the nuclear technology is being led by, the
neglected.
foreign countries, and they're ahead of the game, and we're getting further behind the game or out of the game.
But if the U.S. is reducing crude oil usage and trying to replace with wind and solar, does it work in the future? It will work.
No, no, no. One of the things about crude oil, the demand is there for the products. And right now, the only way that we've been able to provide the products is manufacture crude oil through refineries into petrochemicals and make the products and the fuels. We have, fuels for jets, for ships, trucks, cars, the military, the space program. They're all different kinds of fuels, and they all come out of manufactured, crude oil. But right now, like I say, because we're a materialistic society, it's the products that have brought, us out of, the way our ancestors lived a couple hundred years ago. And if we get rid of crude oil, we're going back to the 1800s. Because, people want a zero emission society. Armando, we had one before 1800s. There was no
Yeah.
coal-fired power plants, no
No,
natural
it's
gas power
impossible.
plants. The Beverly Hillbillies hadn't discovered oil yet.
There it is.
But,
We have
life was short, and yeah, life was hard.
yeah, we have some comments from Di Domenico. Let me share with you all. Is the U.S. in the U.S. our energy use is 100 times our calorie intake.
I'm not sure about the calories, but just the ability to to grow food and fertilizers and pesticides, that comes out of natural gas. But like we're a very materialistic society. That's the thing that when our politicians and policymakers talk about setting policy, they never talk about products. They only talk about energy. But energy, they're confusing wind and solar as doing the same things as crude oil, but they do totally different things.
Mhm.
Because oil is occasionally used to make electricity, but most time it's never used for electricity. It's only used to make oil derivatives that make all the products in our daily lives and the fuels for the different types of transportation systems. Whereas wind and solar can only generate electricity and manufacture nothing for society.
In your article that we are basing this conversation, you mentioned that
Yes,
wind facilities only generate energy about 30-40% of the time.
right.
What does it mean exactly?
Well, that's the thing that frustrates me because wind and solar get subsidies based on their nameplate rating. If they basically say, well, they're going to generate 100 megawatts, they do occasionally, but not 24/7. Whereas natural gas and hydro, I mean, they're generating power, and nuclear, they're generating power all the time. And so to subsidize wind and solar based on the nameplate rating, if you're only going to get 30%, even, tripling the wind is not going to do it because when you want it, they're all going to be done probably at the same time.
Yeah. And you need backup. You need
Well, that's
some
it. Like I say, it's
coal.
occasional, right? It's occasional. So what you're doing, you're just building a secondary electrical generating system. You're paying for a second electrical generating system. It doesn't work most of the time. And so to have the reliable, continuous, dependent on nuclear and hydro and natural gas. So yeah, it makes people feel good that, when it is working, yeah, providing zero emission electricity. The problem is it doesn't work most of the time.
Yeah. The decision of the US to do not invest in nuclear anymore, or I don't know, for a time, is this decision is not based only in the current government model, only in the Democrats, but in the Republicans in the past too.
Oh yeah, it's both parties. Both parties have
Why?
Because of the unknown. I mean, wind and solar are very simplistic. You can look at it and, what you see is what you get. When you look at nuclear, you don't know what's behind the, it's same thing with refineries. And complicated, but when you look at it from the outside, you can see it, but you don't really know what's going on behind the gates.
Behind the gates, you mean military speaking, or
No, yeah, behind the fence where the refinery
okay.
is. But the military, they've gotten pretty wise. Most of the big ships are nuclear powered ships
Sure.
because you can't.
Submarines.
We're out in the middle of the ocean. You can't get easy access to fuel, and but yeah, like I say, from the early movies about the disasters of nuclear,
Yeah.
politicians will not touch it.
Yeah, this is a very complicated issue.
Yes.
The image that the society has about these accidents and so on, and media, the media is feeding this process.
Oh yeah. I would say the American image is they're afraid of it, but like I say, internationally, there's worldwide expansion underway, and the thing that bothers me is that we're losing the race of the nuclear technology. We led the race, leading into space, but if nuclear is going to be, a primary source of electricity for many, many countries, we're losing that race here because we're not involved like everybody else is.
Yes, that's right. Sure. It's a big problem for the United States because other people are developing more these technologies and solutions, and the United States are doing solar and wind investments only.
Yes. That is very frustrating, but hey, that's the way it is. And but all I can do is, as an author, is just bring it up and have people talk about it. As part of energy literacy, you got to be able to talk about it at the dinner table. And when you want to ask, why are all the foreign countries going to nuclear? I think they have recognized finally that electricity from wind and solar is not dependable.
Not sufficient. Yeah.
And they need dependable electricity. We've already got the products because everything, as I mentioned, everything that needs electricity is made with petrochemicals manufactured from fossil fuels. And so we have all the products. We've got the iPhones and the defibrillators and the hospitals, and, everything and all the appliances that people have. And to operate them, they need electricity. Well, the best source of electricity is basically not through wind and solar.
Yeah, let me show another comment from Di Domenico. Without oil, widespread famine would ensue.
Well, exactly, because as I mentioned, we have from natural gas, we have the fertilizers and pesticides, which allows us to grow products all over the world. And you can grow it in one country and transport it to another country. And so, that's what these 50,000 merchant ships are doing. They're moving products all over the world. And it's because we're a product-driven society. Yeah, without oil, it would be very disastrous for humanity. Like I say, we grew from 1 billion to 8 billion in 200 years. If the, COP is successful in getting rid of oil, Armando, we'll lose a couple billion people, from starvation and, malnutrition and diseases, weather-related deaths. We've been able to eliminate like 99% of weather-related deaths. If it's cold, you put on clothes. If it's hot, you turn your air conditioner on. But those are all products that wind and solar cannot make.
Ronald, let me try a challenge with you, please.
Okay.
Imagine that you have $100,
Yes.
and excluding oil, gas, and coal, in which how much dollars you would invest in nuclear, in solar, and wind if you have $100?
100% nuclear. If you give me those three choices, yeah, because I would want electricity all the time. Yeah, I would not invest in wind and solar. In fact, because wind and solar are so intermittent, that's why they require subsidies. It's not a good business model. I think if you take a wind turbine, to the Shark Tank investors, they wouldn't invest either.
Oh, and subsidies cannot be forever, so there is a limitation for the time of application subsidies.
Exactly. So, yeah, it's for them to work, they need subsidies, and that's just not a good business model. And for these developing countries, they don't have any money to begin with, and they need some of the products that we have. And if they have just an iPhone, they would still need electricity to charge it. Wind and solar might work for the iPhone because you only have to charge it occasionally.
Yeah.
But, most of the stuff we have in our daily lives requires, continuous heating and ventilating. And, that's our lifestyle. And, we have the wealthy countries that have the money to subsidize wind and solar are doing that. But the wealthy countries are setting the policy, which is, I think, detrimental to the developing countries. I mean, they're burning, cow dung for heat, instead of just turning on the heater. Well, they don't have those products available to them.
So do you believe that wind and solar would be eliminated from the energy matrix, or could be only focused on research and development, not in the production side?
Well, you have to understand, there's no silver bullet answers. I mean, there's a place for everything, depending on the situation.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, even EVs, for the people that can afford it and have a low, mileage requirement, maybe it fits their lifestyle. Most people want a workhorse vehicle, so it doesn't fit their lifestyle. If you can work off of occasional electricity, hey, then that's fine. I mean, if electricity is generated enough to run your washing machine, it only operates a couple hours a day. And so, it could serve that purpose. So, no, there's no silver bullet answer. There's something
Good.
for everything. But for the politicians to pick winners and losers, that I think is detrimental to humanity.
And Ronald, California, do you have nuclear plants? Still have a lot of them?
Still got one.
One only?
Yes. Yeah, the San Onofre power plant was shut down several years ago, and Diablo Canyon was supposed to be coming down soon, but Governor Newsom, when he was up for, I think a vote, needed the votes and gave it a 1-year extension. So, but it's destined to come down unless there's a drastic change. And when it comes down, like I say, you're talking about power, for millions of people that's not going to be there. And California, because we only have one nuclear power plant, and we're shutting down all the continuous, uninterruptible power sources, California imports more electricity than any other state in the country from our adjoining neighbors. Now, which works out fine, it costs us a lot of money, but right now some of those adjoining neighbors have additional electricity that they can send to us. But if their population grows and their demand grows, they got the supply, we got the demand. And so,
Yep. You mentioned before in the middle of our conversation today that military are still working hard and focusing on nuclear solutions for ships, submarines, and other things, and for the space, of course.
right.
So they do not influence the government and the politicians to move for the nuclear plants for civil applications.
You know, I'm amazed of the lack of conversations at the, political level, because here in America, we have a lot of generals report to our president, Joe Biden. And, be it the Army, Navy, military, Marines, Air Force, the space program. And not one general has asked President Biden the question, how are we going to run the military without fuels for our planes and ships, or the
And no-
products, or the products we need for all the people? And like I say, nuclear is kind of like a separate item. Like I said, we have, I think, the most nuclear powered ships in the world,
Yeah.
and no one talks about it. It's kind of like a hidden deep secret.
That's secret, yeah. But the most sensitive for me, for my impression, personal impression, that you brought today is that if the U.S. is not investing in nuclear plants, the U.S. can lose control and domain of the technology and the use of this solution worldwide.
Exactly. That's the biggest drawback I see. The fact that, yeah, it's easy to look at statistics and see all these nuclear power plants being built around the world. Like say France has, a major supply of electricity from nuclear, and Sweden's jumping into the act. China, Russia, India, everybody is in the act, and we're the only bystanders. That is scary to me, is not wanting to participate in the conversations.
Yeah. In Brazil, we have one nuclear plant working in a very good situation. Is Angra 1. There is another one that's Angra 2, and under construction, another one, Angra 3. All
Okay.
Angra dos Reis place, very close to Rio de Janeiro state, in the Rio de Janeiro state. And a friend of mine, called John Foreman, he's an enthusiast of nuclear and trying to bring to the media and to everyone the advantages of nuclear investments, and but frustrating process.
Well, the real advantage, besides having continuous and uninterruptible electricity from nuclear, it's also emission-free.
Yeah,
And you
that's
would
right.
think everybody wants to go
Low CO2.
everybody wants to go zero emissions. You would think it'd be a no-brainer that that's where you want to go. You're getting zero emissions and you're getting continuous uninterruptible electricity.
Yeah. And
And
a small
and
space
small
compared to
space,
other.
exactly, right. And so it's, yeah. And like I say, you can tie into the grid, and but right now it's just very, very expensive, and the electricity rates are just skyrocketing.
Yeah. And at the same time, with energy growing so fast, demand for energy, and you do not use these resources, so clear and easy resource to use that. So,
Well, let me correct you. Demand for both electricity and the demand for products
product. Yeah.
is increasing.
Separate these two. Yeah.
That's right. But it's growing, and people they don't want to give up their lifestyle.
Yeah, no doubt. No one will give up.
No, No, it becomes a way of living, and you just take it for granted that this is all these products we have is everybody has them, but that's not true. Most people don't have them.
Yep, that's it. And small modular reactors are still waiting for our decisions worldwide
Yeah.
to use widely.
Well, exactly, because like I say, the amount of crude oil demand is not going down; it's going up because people still want the products. And Armando, until we can find a solution to make those products somewhere else or buy us something else, we might be able to make something. The problem is scaling it to the needs. I mean, you could, run an airplane on, grease made from French fries, but you can't scale it because there aren't that many French fries being eaten to make that much grease. No, like I say, there are alternate solutions, and the research and development has to continue to take place because you can come up with an alternative way to provide, power for ships and jets, whatever, but can you do it on a scaling basis? Like you say, we got 50,000 merchant ships, and between military and commercial, there's like 70,000 jets out there.
Ronald, what do you see? What the nuclear industry should do to revert this situation, this concept?
Well, that's a difficult thing because the same situation occurs with nuclear as with the oil industry.
Oil and gas.
Nobody trusts them. So the experts in the oil industry can talk about what they're doing, safely. The emissions, like say, refineries today are extremely clean compared to when they first were,
Yep.
developed, 100 years ago. And the same thing, nobody trusts the nuclear industry. So as much as they can talk about, we can provide, emission-free electricity, continuous and uninterruptible, no one wants to believe them. And they only want to talk about, the disasters that happened, 50 years ago. And they won't get that out of their mind. And so,
No one is listening about this through this reality. No one.
no, I was like I said, I was excited when Sweden stepped up and says, "We've had it. We're done with these renewables. We want reliable electricity." And and like I say, France did that, decades ago.
Yeah, very strong. 70% of electricity in France is from nuclear.
Exactly. So I would like to see America participate in these discussions, and particularly, we're providing a lot of subsidies for wind and solar. I think there should be a lot of subsidies for a lot of research and development of how to get, continuous electricity.
Do you expect after COP28 can be better or worse?
Well, I think this should be the last COP ever, because it's only the wealthy countries that go there, and they're all talking the same tune, that wind and solar electricity is going to replace crude oil. But as we talked about at the very beginning, they do different things. Crude oil does something totally different than wind and solar can't make anything. I mean, you get rid of crude oil and there will be nothing to electrify.
And are they going to this event using their private jets?
Oh yeah, I think the last COP there was 400 private jets.
400.
400.
Wow.
And probably more this year. And none of those jets are powered by electricity.
Yeah, that's right.
No,
True.
and like I say, it's a very materialistic attendees. Take a look at their lifestyle. I mean, they live a lifestyle not only with private jets, but the house they live in, the houses that they own, the large houses.
Using everything, yeah.
Oh yeah. It's amazing. They're a very materialistic group of representatives that want the world to run on electricity from wind and solar.
Yeah.
Well, Armando, I think that's a real misnomer, and like I say, it's really not good for society.
And it's dangerous for the future because you are joking or playing with dangerous things,
Exactly,
energy
exactly.
security, and everything.
Right.
Ronald Stein, was a pleasure again. Thank you so much.
Armando, you have a great day and have a great upcoming weekend.
Yeah, thank you for you too. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.